All right, guys, you heard the lady. We got issues, and we got to figure out what they are right now. So here we go. Lesson 2, discovering the issues. So in this lesson, we're just making a big, long laundry list of issues that are likely to come up in your campaign. And probably include some that aren't super likely, but get them in this big giant list anyway. So in future lessons, we'll figure out exactly how to tackle these issues. But for right now, we're just going through and making this big, long list. So let's get into it. First piece of advice here is keep it local and keep it relevant. So that means that we're not going after every, like if you're running for city council in a small town in Northern California, like where I'm from, Yuba City, California. If you're running for city council in Yuba City, you probably don't need to be talking about conflicts in Syria or in the South China Sea. So keep it local and keep it relevant. Those issues aren't local, and Yuba City City Council doesn't really get to make any decisions about what happens in the South China Sea. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so in order to do that, I have a few more tips as well. So when an issue comes up, think to yourself, like, can my office have any effect here? If it can't, you probably don't want to talk about it. So that's the first thing. Really consider the scope of your office when you're thinking about what issues you could potentially be talking about on the campaign or that people might ask you about on the campaign. So think about the scope of your office. Second, think about the hierarchy between national, state, county, city, boards, all of that. So people tend to think of the government as this one big giant body that just sort of does things. If you're running for office, you have a little bit more sophisticated knowledge than that. So make sure you know those differences in responsibilities between different governmental bodies, so that if an issue comes up and people are asking you about it, or like, what are you going to do about this? If you know that your office doesn't make any decisions about this, but rather there is a board that makes all the decisions about it, and then it gets pitched over to a state entity or the state legislature. Know how these different divisions work, at least in your immediate area and with your state in particular. And then when issues do come up and people ask you about it, that's a real easy go-to. Like, oh, well, actually in this office, I don't get to make any decisions about, X, Y, and Z. Don't say it like you're just completely skirting the issue. I mean, I think you need to have a stance if it's something that affects the public that they're interested in, but please be able to say when you can and when you cannot do something about different issues. So third, is an issue settled? A lot of people get hung up on big ticket issues that are done with for the most part. So let's put an example here. Marriage equality for gay couples. So huge issue for a very long time. Still a pretty big issue. However, if you're running for office and you know it's going to be a controversial issue in your district, then you don't want to talk about it. That's the plain and simple. If it's going to be controversial and it might hurt you, then don't talk about it. And the way you can say this is legislatures across the country have made laws about gay marriage. Different courts have heard cases about gay marriage. Every politician on the sun has made a statement about gay marriage or voted on a piece of legislation about gay marriage. And now, even the Supreme Court of the United States has settled this. It is over. Marriage equality is a law of the land in the United States, period. Done. So if people ask you for your stance, I think it's something that's so, there's no middle ground. You're either a yes or a no. And if you're taking this course right now, I hope you're a yes. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to yell at you at some other point. So shoot me a Snapchat so I can yell at you. You state your opinion and then you move on. You can say that it is just not relevant to your discourse and that it has been completely, totally decided. There's other big issues like this that really get people riled up, that are done with, that are totally settled. So think about that. Okay, so next we'll get into a little more like tactical piece here. So how do you actually go about discovering what the issues are? What's going to come up in your campaign? What are the people in your community thinking about and passionate about? I'm going to be asking you about. So, local press. This is kind of a no-brainer. Your town or your city should have one local newspaper, maybe two, three, four, five plus. I live here in New York City, like I mentioned. There's a million, billion different little newspapers. Um, we have a little tiny local one called the New York Times, and and then there's many more that are much smaller for different neighborhoods, different boroughs in the city. So I know that other cities have similar. So look at all those local newspapers to see what is what the big hot issues that there are. Pay attention to the editorial page and the commentary. Second is social media. There's lots of groups on Facebook that are hyper local and connect. Like I know, like moms groups are really popular, and lots of very very political groups too. Just have a search around and see what you can find. Just in Facebook, in the search in the top, just put your city name and then choose the groups function, and you'll be able to see lots of different groups that pop up. Some are private, some are open. You should consider being a part of those groups anyway, because that's where you can get your name out there campaign wise. And we'll talk about this more later on in our overall social media strategy. But that's a good place to go read through and see what people are fired up about. Word of caution: try not to get sucked into like this dark hole of internet comments. I've definitely done it where I'm looking for something and I see what I'm looking for, and then I read the first comment and then the second comment, and then I've read the like 700th comment. Totally not necessary, total waste of time. Unless you think it's bringing value to the discourse and helping you understand the issue better, then move on. Okay, third source here, local blogs. I know in New York City there are a handful of bloggers that talk just about particular aspects of the city. Like there's some on just food, there's some on just one particular neighborhood, there's one on like new construction projects, and are they thinking about the local residents when they're building these projects. So really great in the weeds, I call it reporting, in the weeds reporting, although it's not technically reporters all of the time. But a great place to learn how people are thinking and feeling about the things that are happening in their community, local blogs. So hopefully some other towns have those. I've seen some from other places, and I know that they exist here for New York. Fourth is local government. You can attend city council committee or city council meetings, meetings of the different committees. Same with like school boards, and there are a million billion different little boards and commissions, and all of their meetings for the most part are open to the public, and you should be able to attend and see what's going on. Although, okay, don't tell anybody I'm saying this. This is only between you and me. Those are going to be a waste of your time. I'm sorry. Don't tell anybody that. But they're really, really, really long. There's tons of commentary from tons of people. You should be able to pick up the notes, the minutes online. I know that I check those out from the different community boards in New York. They send out the minutes afterward. You can read and see what's been going on. I imagine it's similar other places. I know that there was some of that in Sacramento as well when I lived there that you could just review. But it might be, probably will be, will be a waste of your time to go be at those all the time. Until you're sitting up there on the dais because you want the job, then it's really, yeah. But anyway, the one call out I will give here is that if you are running for a city council spot, you should be attending the city council meetings. If you're running for a school board spot, then you should be attending the school board meetings. That people don't always do that and don't always realize it, but you should be, because it shows to the current city council members that are there, and also people that are coming in to present on different ordinances that are under review and legislation of the city council that's under review. All those people are probably very politically active, very connected in your community, and it will make an impact to see your face there, because they all know how boring it is too. So if you're running for that office, for that seat, to be in that room up on the dais, then you should be there in the meetings before the election. So, let's see what else we have here. A couple more. One-on-one meetings. You should be setting up meetings with local community leaders throughout your campaign. I'll talk a lot more about this in a future lesson, exactly how to approach setting up these meetings. But people that have been around for a long time, people that have deep subject matter expertise in different issues, you're going to want to connect with these people, and that's a great place to learn about the issues impacting your community. Okay, last here is polling. So in a little bit larger campaign, there might be budget for public policy polling to happen for your campaign. So taking the pulse of the electorate on specific issues, and then that's a great way to learn more about the issues in depth. But that's not exactly what I'm referring to when I put polling here. Could be useful. You could ask, like, what sort of issues are, what are the top 3 issues in your community that you care about? So you could do something like that. But what could be even more helpful is a lot of polling that already exists. So you can look on that and ask and look at the issues that they're asking community members about. That's a good place to get, for the point of this lesson, to get this big long laundry list of issues going. So, okay, that's where you can go to discover the issues that are happening. So as you're discovering them, what should you be doing? We'll talk about that here. Here is the issue database that I've created for all the students of this course. And you can download this file. There's links to it in the notes. And essentially this is an Excel spreadsheet, Excel-based database. And what it does is keep track of all of your issues for you, and then provide guidance on how you can speak about different issues. So there's the logic that's already built into this spreadsheet. So I'll walk you through how it works and the way that you can get the best use out of it. So each issue has a box like you see here. So in this first row, you just note down the issue, put a short description of the issue. Next line, resources. So you can include here organizations, subject matter experts, any links to helpful web pages that you've come across, any sort of resources for understanding the issue and the various positions on it, you can include here. The next row is rankings and assessments that you do about the issue. So this first one, this is the power of your office to have an impact here. Earlier we mentioned, like, if there's military buildup in the Chinese South Seas, how much impact does Yuba City Council have there? Nada. So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being low, the power of the office for an impact there would be a 1. So next criteria here, likelihood to come up. So how likely is someone going to ask you about this? How likely is this going to be discussed in your campaign? South China Seas and Yuba City Council, probably unlikely. So that would be a 1 as well. You get the point. The next criterion here, sexiness, cultural relevance. So does the issue have a lot of play in the media right now? Is it something that people get really fired up about? Like a lot of like cachet. So that also 1 low, 5 high. You give it a rating there. And then the fourth piece here is how easily grasped and talked about is the issue. Something like Federal Reserve monetary policy. that has such a huge impact in people's lives. And so it's this super, super, super important issue. But in terms of campaigning and talking about it, it's not very easy to grasp and understand at all. I have a master's in international financial and economic policy, and I still have a hard time grasping it and talking about that stuff and don't have that in-depth of understanding. So that would be a 1 here as well. So these are four criteria that you rate the issue on. So the next line here, which you can see in row 5, stance. Just give your basic stance on the issue. You can just use 1 sentence or less. Just put it out there. The next piece, background legal information. So this is where you talk about any like statutes related to this, any case law that's out there. I know that, well, you might be a lawyer, you might not be, and you might be not too familiar with legal concepts and talking about the law, but if you're running for a public office that involves lawmaking, you're going to need to get kind of comfortable with this. So that's all I can really tell you here. So I'm not saying that you need to go dig into like case law books and go find like the local law library. That's not how it works. But when you're talking to people and they're telling you about the law related to this issue, then you listen carefully and you take good notes and you include it in here. Also include the U.S. Constitution. So we should all be pretty familiar with the Constitution, particularly the amendments to it, the Bill of Rights, first 10. So if an issue comes up and it, like gun control or like non-discrimination, the 14th Amendment, these big ones, you need to know that the U.S. Constitution or your state constitution, and for other issues, where it speaks very clearly and definitively about issues, you're going to need to know that here. Second, or the next row here, your principles regarding the issue. So this is where you answer like, how do you believe society and or government should fundamentally work? How does that relate to this issue? So one candidate might think the government shouldn't get involved with hardly anything at all. Maybe just building up a military and that's it. Another candidate might think that the government is 100% responsible for ensuring that every single citizen is out of poverty, has access to healthcare, and has 3 square meals a day and an education from kindergarten through master's degree. Different candidates have different principles regarding public policy issues and the role that like society, government, individuals, institutions, the role that all of these people play. I call all of that principles. So this is where you record down your principles as they relate to this issue. So this next one, row 8, your morals regarding the issue. So this is where you take things up a level, above politics, above government, and you think about like what are like fundamental beliefs that I hold about the way like mankind should treat each other, the way that mankind should take care of the planet, the way that they connect to like God and how they live out their life in accordance with those like deeply held morals. So if the issue is, well, we can talk about gay marriage as we were just talking about a moment ago. Some people are going to have some very, very, very strong moral beliefs about that issue, both ways, pro and con. So this is sort of something that just transcends government policy. So we have a few more questions here at the end that are more like criteria-based questions or like rating questions. So is the issue very heated? Simple yes or no. Does the law speak definitively on it? And this is this row here where we have background legal information. So is there really a definitive legal argument here to be made one way or the other? Is your stance on the issue in line with the law? Simple yes or no. Okay, and then based off of all of this that you've inputted into the chart here, an issue priority is assigned to the issue, and that is also a 1 through 5 rating. And then guidance for how you should craft your issue statement, your issue message, that is populated here in this row. So let me show you how it works on an example that I already filled out for you. So we'll go over here to this Issue DB tab, and this is the main area where you'll be working when you start doing this yourself on your own campaign. So issue number 1, issue number 2, issue number 3, issue number 4, blah, 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 blah. I've created 50 of these for you, and that should suffice, hopefully. If you have some Excel skills, you can figure out how to add in more at the end. So here's an example that I've added here. So should the county adopt a 1-cent tax on gasoline to pay for wildlife restoration? So some resources that we have here, we have Citizens Against New Taxes. That's an organization. John Caro, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Ryan Stronghold, the president of Conservation America. And then we have a link here, www.preservesmithcounty.org. This is all stuff that I made up, guys. Power of your office to impact. So we gave it a 3. So let's say we're running for County Board of Supervisors, and we have the most say, or we have quite a bit of say over this, so we say 3. But if we had all the say over it, like if it was just me and a couple other County Board of Supervisors, then we would have like all the say. So we give it a 5. So a likelihood to come up in the campaign, it's a huge issue right now. It's called a 5. Sexiness, cultural relevance, we'll give it a 3. A lot of people are talking about it. It's about the environment, conservation, sustainability, all these other buzzwords that are huge in public discourse right now. So, let's bump it up a notch. Let's call it 4. How easily grasped and talked about is the issue? Well, it can get a little bit complex when you're talking about taxing gasoline and where the taxes are right now, and there's also one that's about to expire, so it would just like take the place of that one. There's some nuances here that can be a little bit hard to grasp. So we'll give it a 3. So stance, very clearly stated here, I disagree with adopting a 1-cent tax to fund wildlife restoration program. Okay, cool. Background legal information. So once again, guys, I'm just making all this stuff up. Legal scholars don't disagree at all. The government has authority to levy taxes and do whatever they want with the money. All right? Your principles regarding the issue. So I fundamentally believe that the government should not tax people to pay for programs unless it is absolutely necessary that the government carry out that function. Okay, cool, Chris. I'm conservative, Chris, today. Sweet. Your morals regarding the issue. Morally, I believe that everyone has the responsibility to care for our environment and planet. I am also very morally opposed to the government taking money from people unless absolutely necessary. In this case, my second moral argument is the stronger. So the second one I put there. All right. Is the issue very heated? Oh yeah. People are a little bit pissed about this. Does the law speak definitively? Yeah. There's no gray area there. Like the county can just vote on this and do it. Is your stance in line with the law? No, it's not. Okay. Issue priority, 4.3. So on a 1 through 5, it gets a 4.3. And guys, I've like built in the logic and the functioning of the spreadsheet to make it be able to do this. Same with this window here. So, or this cell here. So what it tells us, guidance for crafting your message. It says, don't speak about this from a legal perspective. If the issue is dry, talk about principles. If the issue is more emotional in nature and invokes strong, visceral responses from people, then talk about it from your moral stance. If the subject arises that your stance is not in alignment with the Constitution, don't try and make a legal case for your issue. Stick with your principles and morals. And say that the law always has evolved over time, and in the long run, it bends toward a better world, and that you will fight to ensure that the law catches up to what is morally the right thing to do. Well, for us, we don't need to worry about that last piece. So what I did here is I wrote an issue statement. And what you're supposed to do is take a look. So over here in our how-to guide, you can see that our instructions here for writing your issue statement. Craft your issue statement per the guidance above. Use language from legal, principles, and morals section above. So what we're going to do is look at the guidance that's been auto-populated here, and then look at what we've written for the background legal information, principles, and morals. So let's go back to our issue here. So, should the county adopt a 1-cent tax on gasoline to pay for wildlife restoration? So we just we just looked at the guidance that the database gives us. And then, so what I did is I came back up here. So my stance, I'm opposed to it. Background information. So the legal, there's not much to say there. There's no gray area. It's totally within the function of the government. Principles, I say that I fundamentally believe the government should not tax people to pay for programs unless it's absolutely necessary that the government carry out that function. Okay. And then morals, morally I believe that everyone has a responsibility to care for our environment and our planet, yada yada. Okay, so I took all of that and then I wrote a stance here. So I said I disagree with adopting a 1-cent tax to fund wildlife restoration program. So I just stated up front my stance, and it's the same thing that I have above. And then I did a blend of like principles and morals in alignment with what was said to do here. So I said, while I support raising taxes to fund issues that we as a society must tackle together, I also understand that for every problem our government spends money on, it is money out of the pockets of citizens. So we must be 100% certain that we absolutely must tackle this issue together with taxpayer funds. In speaking with many local organizations and subject matter experts such as the Chamber of Commerce, Ryan Stronghold, and President of Conservation America, so you see what I did there is I went back and I already had my folks, my resources, people that I've talked to about it. I already had them listed up above, so I could mention them right down here. And then I say, I've learned a great deal about this issue because it is critically important. So in that learning, I discovered that there are several nonprofits that are already restoring these wetlands and that they simply need better access to already existing job training programs sponsored by the county, programs that have plenty of resources available currently. Please know in your hearts that I believe every member of our community has a moral responsibility to care for our planet. I carry that responsibility with me and will not let you down or the environment down on this issue. So you can see it's like a good mix of like principles, morals, the people and organizations that I've spoken with that are listed in my resources. So that's how you tie it all together per the guidance that's provided here. Okay, so I know it's kind of heavy. I know it's kind of a lot. You should just practice using this. And we'll use it a little bit more as we move on throughout the rest of this chapter too. In terms of rounding out lesson 2 here, what you're going to do is just go through, as you're capturing issues, just keep them in this database. You don't have to go through and answer every single one right now and come up with an issue statement for each. That's not really the idea. But when you learn about a new issue, go and record it here and put it, describe the issue in this dark blue bar at the top and write down some resources that like the people that have been talking to you about it, include that in there. Maybe think about the power of your office to impact it and these different criteria up here. Rate those, give your initial stance on it, and then if you want to provide some other background information, feel free. But no need to go through and do the detailed issue statement and everything that I just did for this issue. That comes later on. You'll see how to do that. I just wanted to show you how the whole table works right now. So for the purposes of rounding out this lesson, just keep track of all of your issues in here. Keep on recording them down, get those basic resources, your basic stance on each, and then we'll show you how to use, how to proceed after that in following lessons. So hope you guys take the time to get comfortable with this Excel file and that it's useful for you in recording down all these issues and thinking about them. So see you in the next lesson. Thanks, guys.